Oh, what's that smell, man? Should have brought a gas mask down here. I forgot how rank it is. It's like I live in my apartment with my roommates and they crop dusted me every time. Alright, Val, I'll stop complaining. The footage should be around here somewhere. The sooner we can get it, the sooner we get out of here. Here we are. You might have to do the honors? Thank you. Support sets. The very key essence on Pokken tournaments, fighting style. Each support set can provide you with many types of support functions. Turning the tide of battle in your own favor, or trying to ensure that you'll be able to win the match with little to no effort, or put you in a downward spiral. Each support set can be divided into many situations. Attack, defense, which is intercept, or enhance. And we all know by the tutorial, attack is to attack your opponent, defense is to basically intercept your opponent's attack, and enhance is to basically enhance your general capabilities, such as attack, defense, or even synergy. Right now, it does lead to a good question. Right now, everyone was always questioning what would be the latest meta of support sets for certain characters. Because each character has their own different playstyle, and different playstyle means different variety of support sets that it can be useful with. But it leads to a very critical point. There are there's basically 20 or hundreds of support sets right now at our disposal that we can use. But it leads to $1 million question. What could be the latest meta around? Like, what can we use right now that's very useful in our own playstyle? So, I'm going to be doing now is going over a top 10 support sets that are considered very powerful to my perspective. But it's not going to be gone by meta. So, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, let's on with number 10. To anyone that likes Mega Rayquaza, please forgive me. But Mega Rayquaza and Mimikyu would start the list off at number 10. Let's discuss on Mega Rayquaza and Mimikyu. Mega Rayquaza and Mimikyu are both one attack and one disrupt. With Mega Rayquaza being attack support set, Mega Rayquaza will grace the field and charge at your opponent with a move known as Dragon Descent. This move would automatically charge in on your opponent, doing significant amount of damage, but at a major setback. When using this attack, you can only use it once per round, and not to mention, Mega Rayquaza will take some of your synergy to enhance its attack. So in other words, you'll be down a support set, and some of your synergy would gone away thanks to Mega Rayquaza's attack. This attack is very useful if you're trying to force your opponent on a defensive, but it's not that very helpful if your opponent blocks the attack. It does a lot of chip, but the best thing you can actually use with Mega Rayquaza is that if you catch your opponent completely off guard. It's so satisfying if you catch your opponent completely off guard with this attack. It's like literally they're getting hit with 10 tons of oversized Dragon Train. It's so satisfying. I mean, look at this. Train is late. Man, that Gardevoir forgot to pay its airfare. Okay, next wing we all have next is Mimikyu. Mimikyu is known to be a disrupt set with a move known as Play Rough. Play Rough's a move that will weaken the person's synergy burst while weakening the attack strength of the battle Pokemon. It's kind of useful. It's very helpful for people that want to have a weakened support set or a weakened synergy gauge or weakened attack. It's like a good weakened support pack. It would weaken synergy and not to mention weaken the attack strength of the Pokemon, but it comes at a different setback. See, Mimikyu can only attack if the battle Pokemon is within its blast radius, or I like to call it its attack radius. Because as you see, those little rings around it is basically Mimikyu's attack radius. Mimikyu won't attack your opponent unless it's within the radius. If not, it will refuse to attack and then dissipate. That's one big setback that Mimikyu has. It's not like any other Disrupt support set that would just go in and attack you directly. It has to be within its line of sight. So in other words, Mimikyu can't be used unless your opponent is within its radius. And not to mention another disadvantage can be is that your opponent can jump over Mimikyu. Like, Mimikyu, other support set with disrupt abilities have anti-air properties. Unlike Mimikyu, your opponent can literally jump over Mimikyu's attack at any time if it's activated. That could be a bad flaw. I mean, it's good for anti-air properties, but it is a significant flaw because literally, your opponent can just jump over it. As in the great words of World Tournament commentators, if you always have the duck, you throw the ducky over. You throw the ducky a stick. And let him go to town with your opponent. First support set we have is Farfetch and Electro. We're going to first discuss what is Farfetch attack support. It's simple, Fury Cutter. He goes in and starts wailing you with his stick multiple times. It's a good combo setter-upper for any time. The concept is that Farfetch in Dual Face does have limited amount of range attacking its opponent, but once it hits the field phase, he can hit you with the broadside of a barn. Literally, he would hit you from the other side of the world. He will bring the world of hurt just to you for a low price of your blood on a plate. The one great thing about Farfetch is that it kind of gives you that guessing game ability. Think for example if your opponent is wedged in a corner and they're stuck. This now gives you the opportunity to play one thing I like to call the guessing game. It forces your opponent to think on their feet, are you going to attack after Farfetch dissipates, or are you going to go for a grab? It makes it so hard for them to know what you're gonna do because this is so powerful for break-ins that they use sometimes to an advantage. This is why some of the times when I face break-ins, I would see them with the Farfetch Electro setup because the fact Farfetch can give so much pressure off to an opponent, they won't be able to know what attack you're going for next. It kind of gives a lot more pressure than you're dealing with. I mean, literally look at this guy. This guy just literally will wail on your opponent, giving them a hard time to either set up on field or duel. It literally brings a butt whipping to anybody that stands in its path. Unlike its counterpart in its support set. Yes, we had to talk about the next person in our support set, and that is Electrode. But first, I'm gonna have to have this guy start attacking me. Because this thing does not work unless there was a direct attack hit to me. And when it does, man, you'd be shocked knowing how much damage you can do if this opponent decides to catch itself off guard and get directly hit with an atomic bomb to their face. I mean, look at that. My firecrackers make bigger explosions than this. It's like in a way that Electrobe is very powerful, but it just has significant setback. Electrobe has one big setback. It has to be a direct hit. If there's no direct hit, guess what happens? Electrobe doesn't work. He would immediately dissipate and malfunction. That's how it was said accordingly in support set. It won't attack unless a direct attack is made. I mean, it is good, like, if you're gonna do it right in their face when they do the attack, but it's also a big disadvantage. If you do it right in front of the person's face, guess what's gonna happen? They're gonna realize what you're trying to do, and they're gonna grab you. Because remember, when Electrode's activated, you're a sitting duck until someone attacks you. And guess what will happen? If you're a sitting duck, what's gonna do? They're gonna go for a grab. That's like literally putting a grab me sign like a kick me sign. Putting Electrobe out, it's like a kick me sign, but instead of a kick me, it's a grab me sign. And not to mention, guess what they can do? If they see Electrobe, they could just wait until he dissipates and you can get attacked again. Because remember, you are a sitting duck until contact is made. To be honest, that's why it makes it number 9. It's because Electrobe is almost nearly impossible to use, because it has to be a direct hit, or you're a sitting duck, vulnerable to attack. Now we have to go through my favorite support set. This support set is known to be a Snivy and Lapras. Snivy is known to be as an attack supporter that does a decent amount of damage than a Leaf Tornado. But to be honest, it should have been a disruptor because literally this attack is a counterattack. Meaning that you get counterattack armor and the Snivy has limited amount of range because what it does is that the Leaf Tornado kind of protects you from uncommon attacks. Because of that counterattack armor protects you. I mean, I did a video earlier that the fact that Braixen can use it as like a combo opener, but mostly for other people that use Snivy's Leaf Tornado, is more of a means of a natural defense. It's not literally means for attack. So what it does is just going to protect the user, even though Snivy goes a few centimeters away from its opponent. Or towards its opponent. I mean, Gardevoirs can use it for pressure some of the times, like using Future Sight and then going straight into Snivy, because literally Future Sight will protect them from getting grabbed. Like putting a Future Sight near their feet will protect them from being grabbed, while the Snivy can actually do more pressure towards their opponent while the Future Sight's still in play. It provides good offensive decisions, but good for defensive purposes. But let's get to my second favorite, Lapras. The second of the bunch of support sets. Lapras is very good is that he does a lot of chip damage with his Surf attack. Even though his recharge rate is very medium to average, it's very worth it to use him. Because for starters, his Surf can either do a good amount of damage towards the opponent, not to mention it can force opponents back a bit, like you can force distance on them, and not to mention, it's very hard to avoid. Even if you try to jump it, it's almost possible you can jump Lapras, but some of the times it's almost nearly unavoidable. So overall, the weaknesses of Snivy and Lapras is that for Snivy, you can be grabbed out of your attack. Since it's a counter attack, you can be exposed for a few seconds to being grabbed at it. It is a good support set, but you can get grabbed out of it, and not to mention, a bad support set timing, you can also get hit with a burst attack. Because remember, Snivy's a counter attack. And counter attacks can be beaten by a burst attack, since burst attacks go against all physics of the actual attack triangle. As you can see here, I did a bad call, and I'm going to be sent into another dimension. Thanks, Snivy! This is gonna leave you Mark and Morning. You leave so many options. It leaves you so many opens for an opponent to exploit by either grab or burst attack. But as for Lapras, the only weakness I could find out of it is that you can jump it. There is a possibility you can jump it, but it takes a lot of timing to perform. Alright, let's bring the Legendaries of Black and White to light. With Reshiram and Cresselia. Ever since the original Pokken tournament, these ones got a significant debuff over the times of Deluxe. I'll explain. Reshiram's is the first known attack support set, known to be as Blazefire, I think is. I'm not that really good when it comes to reading these, so I'm going to end up posting them on the screen. Don't get mad at me in the comment section for mispronunciations. This blue flame is very unique because what it does is that in dual phase, it covers the entire arena in a very powerful flame. It can force opponents back when they're blocking, and not to mention if an opponent does get hit by this attack, their attack strength is decreased due to the fact they were hit. It's very good for many people that need to have distance away from their opponents. In dual phase, it covers a lot of space, a huddle phase, but in field phase, it can only cover a straight line through the area upon which Reshiram was called. However, there is one significant advantage when calling Reshiram, is that since Reshiram's so slow, you can get attacked by a grab, or even get hit with burst attack if Reshiram doesn't attack in time. So in other words, if your opponent's close enough for a grab and you called Reshiram, He's not fast enough to attack him in time, but you're gonna hit with a decent amount of damage. So if you're thinking of forcing your opponents back with Reshiram, make sure you have a good amount of distance away from your opponents. The next support set we have is Cresselia. Cresselia is kind of a mixed wild card, if you say. According to the text of the support set, Cresselia can heal off any battle damage and any negative stats that your opponent gets. Or not what your opponent gets, what you get. Like if you have an attack decrease, no support at all, or even the fact that your synergy's weakened, Cresselia can heal that off along with giving you synergy increased. Here's how it works. If you get hit with an attack debuff, Cresselia would automatically heal it at the moment when you got hit with that said debuff, while healing off any recoverable HP it got. And not to mention, your synergy gauge will start to rise when you use Call Upon Cresselia. One big disadvantage of Cresselia and the Reshiram set is that Cresselia and Reshiram have a slow rate of charge. And not to mention, the crucial thing of Cresselia and Reshiram is that they can only be called upon only once per round. So in other words, you have to make your only call count. Because once you use that account, you're completely out in the open without a support set. Now let's begin to talk about my favorite Eeveelutions introduced in Pokemon Colosseum. If I thought. Umbreon and Espeon. Both support and enhance. Umbreon is mostly in the Destruct category. His attack is known to be as Snarl, and what it does is that it does quick amount of damage. Even though it's weak, the opponent no longer has critical hits. And not to mention, this attack automatically steals the opponent's synergy gauge. It's a very effective support set. Here's what I mean. Here's how this support set goes. If your opponent has a full meter, Umbreon automatically takes your opponent's synergy gauge, and if it was stuck for any time any longer in Umbreon's Snarl, they don't have the ability for critical hits. This puts you at a great advantage because your opponent can't get a critical hit off you, and not to mention, if they lost a lot of synergy gauge to go into burst mode, and you still have synergy to use burst mode, that puts them at a big disadvantage. Because now you can go for an all-out attack that will cause them to be pressured. It puts a lot of pressure. I saw Puppy Havoc and other people use Umbreon and Garchomps. Because of the fact, guess what happens to your opponent? They don't have any synergy to use burst. Their Garchomp now can burst. That puts more intimidation into their opponent, limiting their options. Because now they can't do counterattack and they can't burst. But let's talk about its lighter counterpart, Espeon. Espeon is kind of weird. It's almost like Cresselia, but a little bit different. See, Espeon, what she does is that she'll just heal off any type of battle damage you've taken throughout the entire game. But it comes at a big catch. The later the match it is, the more health you recover. So it's... Espeon's kind of like a higher crush card compared to Cresselia, because now Espeon can heal off any battle damage that you received during the duration of the match. If it were the last 30 seconds, you get a lot more HP back. If we're the beginning of the match, like 10 to 20 seconds in, you'll get less amount. It all depends on how long the match was. Now we're trucking along with the list. We are going next with Frogadier and Eevee. Frogadier is known to be as an attack support set with this move known as Water Shuriken. It throws a 3 burst of Water Shuriken barrage that would immediately attack the player at field phase, but in duel phase, it sets 2 sets of shurikens. One going towards the ground in short range, and one going towards the ground at long range. As you can see, it provides like some sort of protection against your foe from closing in the distance on you. But usually some of the time, Frogadier is more useful in field phase because literally it is mostly nearly impossible to hit an opponent in duel phase with Frogadier in this general setting. That's generally my perspective, because you can see for Frogadier in field phase, once activated, his Water Shurikens can actually cover the entire playing field, making it much more useful to either set up a combo of your own,
as you can see right here, or what's even better is that you can also put pressure on people that do rely a lot on projectiles. Like many Gardevoirs out there love to spam projectiles. So Frogadier's Water Shuriken does give them a hard time to plan out which attack they can throw at you. Even though this attack can be counter-cancelled or even blocked, it just gives you more options to close in the gap between your opponent or pull off some sick combos. This support set also comes with a great enhancer known as Eevee. Eevee's Helping Hand incredibly increases the person's attack power with an attack buff. And unlike this attack support, it actually has a certain limit or length of time period. I actually did a current time scan on how long the attack buff lasts for. And according to basically the stopwatch I used, the average amount of time that Eevee's Helping Hand can last up to is around at least 10 seconds. So once Eevee's activated, you have 10 seconds of attack power-up. This kind of makes it scary for most opponents that don't like having your opponent with a buff. Not to mention also the enhance ability is much more useful since it's much longer than any other support set, I believe. Like compared to Miss Magius's ability, his attack buff doesn't last that long, and Poplio's attack buff only lasts for a few seconds as well. So Eevee's Helping Hand is known to be as a long-lasting attack supporter that will give you just the amount of power you need to either put a lot of pressure on your opponent, or give you more power just to take the tide of battle in your own favor. Let's get back to more Legendaries. Because why not more Legendaries be on this list? We have Latios and Eeveelutions. Latios is a Disrupt support set that has a move that is Luster Purge. Luster Purge is a move that has these unique type of pillars of psychic energy. One thing that's unique about these psychic energy is that once the opponent comes into contact with said psychic beam, automatically drops their defense. This particular move is very useful for some people that do want pressure, because if anyone ever took psychology class, everyone's gonna panic trying to get out of that goddamn Luster Purge. It's like literally they're gonna be putting the spotlight on them in a bit. A very deadly spotlight that no one is gonna get caught in because they don't want to lose any of their precious defense. That's why most people that rely on all-out attack use this, because they want that pressure so they can close in the distance. Not to mention, having decreased defense is very useful so you can do even more damage. Now we're gonna move on to its counterpart, Eeveelutions. Unlike Latios being defense, Eeveelutions is all-out attack, with its attack Oblivion Wing. As you can see, one thing that's unique about Oblivion Wing is it has two major effects. For starters, it hits the Pokemon and gets stunned. Second, it petrifies and seals the battle Pokemon's energy. And the third known effect that can happen is that once it's stuck in the Oblivion Wing, Synergy Burst is automatically sealed, once after the end phase of the attack. However, if the Pokemon manages to escape said Oblivion Wing, they can't get affected by the Synergy Burst lock. It only works by the end of the attack. I mean, literally, you could do a combo that you knock them out of the Oblivion Wing that they wouldn't get affected by said Synergy lock, as you can see in this combo. You can see that I managed to line Eeveelutions, but I didn't manage to get the Synergy lock. This support set is very useful for people that do rely on locking your opponent's Synergy gauge. Because some people like Garchomp want that so they don't have any chance fighting back. Any chance fighting back is like literally an easy victory for them, because all they have to do is go in guns blazing in a hellish wave of glory and explosion. To victory! What? Even more Legendaries? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm not kidding. I kid you not. The next support set that came on this list is Mew and Celebi. Mew is known to be enhanced with its ability known as Metronome. This thing can get very higher on the list, but the only problem with Metronome that I like about it is that Metronome can either give you critical hits, increase your attack, give you synergy, or it can give you jack diddly squat. Because there'll be some cases Eevee would just give you a CAC increase, there'll be a situation it can give you a synergy increase, or it could just give you a jack diddly squat like it just did me, and just a synergy increase. The synergy increase is guaranteed. You can get either an attack increase, or you can get a all critical hit. It all depends on the roll of the die. It's very useful for me, to many other people, because literally, it's very useful to get that synergy buff and the chances of attack up or critical hits. But the only problem is that I don't really rely on the luck of the draw. Because there's going to be some cases you're not going to get what you want. You're going to get just a synergy increase and no other buffs. So in other words, you're playing gamble. It's like your own version of gambling the match. You're hoping that the luck of the roll gets what you want. Setting that aside, we're moving on straight into Celebi. Celebi is a little bit weird. Celebi's ability is known to be as Time Warp. Time Warp is basically causes you to cause an automatic phase shift to the battle Pokemon you're facing. So anything within its blast radius automatically causes a phase shift. The only problem of this attack is that it has a heck of a startup frame. I mean, I can climb Mount Rushmore, put my flag on it, write something on the mountain itself, come back, and it still wouldn't work. Like, it would still activate. I mean, you can work if your opponent's, like, stunned, like here. You could definitely use Celebi when your opponent's, like, completely stunned. If you want to get him out of duel phase, like for Gardevoir. But most of the time, it's very hard to hit Celebi, because you have to be literally have to catch the opponent off guard completely. But the good thing about this attack is that it's completely unblockable, meaning that once your opponent is stuck within that radius, it's a guaranteed phase shifter. In other words, your phase is automatically shift. Who says Magikarp isn't helpful at all? At number 2, the second one of the list, for number 1 is Magikarp and Pachirisu. Ironically, they're both intercepts. Magikarp is really unique with its ability Bounce. It's simple. Magikarp bounces in the air. He doesn't land until a certain amount of time, but he can actually speed up his land on one condition. See, Magikarp will land quicker if you get hit with an attack. So in other words, if an opponent hit you with a direct attack and you get hit, it's an automatic hit by the support. But however, it's if the phase shift, Magikarp can hit you. So in other words, Magikarp can be useless if you get hit with a phase shift move. But if you get hit with a move that's not a phase shifter, he would hit you, and guess what will happen is that the opponent will lose its speed. This is very useful for some mons that do rely on a quick escape and will be able to close the distance with them. It's very hard to master, but it does yield good results. Now we move on to the next one, Pachirisu. This has to be Gardevoir's bane of existence, or anybody that relies on projectiles. Pachirisu, follow me, automatically dissipates any projectiles and goes straight into Pachirisu, making them physically useless. Basically, in other words, no one can throw projectiles because of the fact Pachirisu's out on the field. Even though it's a short time period, it gives just the opportunity for some power fighters to close in the distance, because now they don't have to worry about projectiles hitting them in the face. Pachirisu is basically kind of like the referee towards projectile attacks. Your opponent wants to stack up? Denied. Your opponent wanted to be able to barrage you with projectiles? Think again. In other words, it just puts a lot of pressure for people that rely on projectiles, because they won't be able to use them for a short period of time. But in the end, who can actually top this idea of protection of both physical attacks and field attacks? I'll tell you which one actually tops these two with our number 1. Alright, for being a Lucaria main, used to be Lucaria main before becoming Gardevoir main, would expect this coming. We're going with Jirachi and Whimsicott support set. Why? Because this support set's OP! Here, let me explain why. We'll start off with Jirachi. Jirachi's idea is that Jirachi's natural ability, Wish, gives the player a Synergy Burst enhance. The idea that Synergy Burst enhance is that now the Burst Pokemon can actually do even more damage in its Burst form, plus the Wish. I actually did some calculations on this by comparing the attack damage of both base, mega, and the actual form with the Wish enhance. And I predict actually the multiplied damage you actually give to your opponent is actually twice, like a 2 times multiplier altogether. Like, base form's 1 times. The burst form is adding a 0.5 times multiplier, but adding Jirachi is actually adding another 0.5 times multiplier. So in other words, you're doing around 2 times the amount of damage you would ever do in your mega form. But it has another unique twist with Jirachi, is that when you activate Jirachi's natural ability, is that not only you have a Synergy Burst enhanced, but if you did not have Synergy Burst, you're granted with even more Synergy, meaning that when you have Synergy Burst enhanced, you can actually gather Synergy more effectively. Not to mention also, you're given Synergy when Jirachi is on the field if you didn't had any. This is like a wombo combo right here. Like a 3-in-1 package. A Synergy enhanced capability, Synergy gathering, and not to mention also a super OP Mon that could turn your face inside out. Or literally knock you into the moon. It's that powerful. Then we have the Whimsicott setup. Whimsicott having Substitute is really unique in a way compared to Pachirisu. Here's how it works. Whimsicott's basically Substitute is this. It gives you a health recovery. Then, Whimsicott would end up making these substitutes, which are physically immune to all means range damage for only a short period of time. And these will be there entirely until the effect wears off, or the opponent gets grabbed, or the person who has the effect gets grabbed. If you had the effect and grabbed an opponent, however, you would still have said effect because literally you were the one that commissioned the grab. However, one big disadvantage of Whimsicott is that Substitute cannot protect you against burst attacks. It can protect you against light hits, making it very hard for opponents that rely on projectiles to seal in the deal. But it is not well protected and not a good insurance policy if your opponent decides to go for a crazy burst attack and knocking you straight into next week. Or that matter, getting hit with a strong enough attack. Because some attacks can go right through Whimsicott's barrier. But it is very useful for weak attacks some of the times, because literally some power characters need to end up having that advantage so they'll be able to close the distance. And that wraps up with the top 10. I mean, before I leave actually, a key little piece of advice I want to remind you. Always learn to experiment. Experimenting with different support sets with your main actually is very useful. You'll be able to learn new support sets you would never even think that actually benefit certain mons. But being able to experiment with anything in general in Pokken Tournament gives you a chance to be able to make yourself a better deck. If anything you want to add into the top 10 list or talk about your own, please let me know. If not, I'll catch you guys next time.